Okay, so imagine the scenario. You're last to arrive at band practice and the others have already got a little bit of a vibe going and they want you to join in. The chords are already being strummed by the rhythm guitarist, so initially you do what any self-respecting lead guitarist does. You turn up obnoxiously loud and start twiddling about tunelessly with the relevant pentatonic scale. However, this has cold water poured all over it pretty quickly by your colleagues, and it becomes apparent that you're going to have to do something musically relevant and appropriate to the situation. And this is where triads come in. Okay, so let's assume the song they've come up with is this. Pretty obvious 4-bar affair. So you quickly ascertain the chord progression is C, E minor, A minor, F. So initially you might try busking along in the open position like so, but remember the rhythm guitarist is already doing that, so you look a damn fool and you've rendered yourself basically irrelevant. Now, because you're a knowledgeable sort of guitarist, you do quickly realise that you can play those same chords elsewhere on the neck using barring, so you might then try something like this. However, even that feels a little bit too cluttered in the mix. And you're starting to feel like those people you're in a band with haven't left you any space sonically to do anything. So you're on the verge of storming out, claiming artistic differences, but then you remember about these things called triads. Now, to be technical, all of those chords in the progression are triads. They are chords with 3 different notes in them, no more. Now, they don't particularly feel like it because when we play open position or bar chords, we're usually playing at least 5 strings at a time. But of course, some of the notes from within the chord are doubled up. And by isolating the triad from within the chord and just playing each note once, we can get a much crisper, cleaner, direct sound. Now, this does presume a little bit of prior knowledge. We're going to assume here that you're comfortable finding notes on the fretboard and also working out what notes are within any given chord. If you're not comfortable doing that, I would humbly suggest that is really worth doing. But assuming that's all right, we'll press on to what we might call level 1 accompaniment. Alright, so using our knowledge of chords and chord construction, we figure out that the notes in that first chord, the C major, are C, E and G. That's the major triad. So we find a C root note. We're going to go a little bit higher up on the neck to contrast with the open position chords. And we might ultimately settle on this C note here at the 10th fret on the D string. And we can construct the triad from there very easily. We play the C there, then the E, 9th fret on the G string, and then the G, 8th fret on the B string. Then for our next chord, E minor, we need the notes E, G and B. So you might be tempted to move up on the same string to find your new root note E, and then play the G and the B there. Then comes A minor, which is A, C and E. So we might then move that same shape down to start on the root note A there. And then finally F, which is F, A and C. So to find our root note F on that same string, we're going to move right back up here to the 15th fret. Like that. So then we end up with a pretty basic triad part that would go like this. be level 1 pretty much complete. So now we've got something that fits decently enough with the track, but you're getting the impression your bandmates are still not completely happy. And then one of them even goes so far as to suggest that what you're doing there is a bit clunky and artless. And you're beginning to suspect they might be right. And whilst it's very easy to sneer at the other person doing something as simple as strumming open position chords like that, the simple fact that we have to concede is that sounds really good. And it sounds good because all the chords are played in the same area of the neck, and they're utilising something called common chord tones. Now, the issue with our part is twofold. Firstly, however adept you are at moving across the neck, it's always going to sound a little bit disjointed if you're having to lurch halfway up and down the neck from one chord to another. It's going to interrupt the flow of what you're doing. And also, by playing each chord in exactly the same sequence, we're playing each component in the same order, root note, third, fifth, it's going to sound pretty dull and predictable pretty quickly. So that's where level 2 comes in, and level 2 comes in the form of what's called inversions. Inversion is just playing the same notes of a chord in a different order. It's that simple. So we might start in the same place. We might like our C major triad we start with, and then it suddenly dawns on us that the notes of the C major chord, C, E and G, and the notes of the E minor chord, E, G and B, have 2 out of 3 notes in common. They both have E and G. This is the common chord tone thing. The only difference is that going from a C chord to an E minor chord, we need to change the C note to a B note. And this won't come as a juddering shock to you if you've ever learned something called the alphabet. B and C are right next to each other. So actually, to transform that into an E minor chord, all we have to do is lower that note 1 semitone. So we've got something smoother and less predictable straight away. Then comes A minor, the A, C and E. Well, again, we can make use of that common chord tone E. So we're going to have to move our B note back up to C, stay on the E, and then play the A at the 10th fret on the B string. And then A minor to F. Well, F is F, A and C. Again, we've got 2 notes in common, the A and the C. All we need to do is move that E note up 1 semitone to F. See how that pans out. So, coming along pretty well, but then you become aware of the ever-looming danger that people might pay more attention to the singer than to you. This is obviously unacceptable, so you decide to go all out on level 3. And what you might do here is start to decorate those triad shapes with any surrounding notes from the C major scale. Our chord progression is in C major, so that's the scale we want to go for. Again, this requires a little bit of fretboard knowledge, but you'll find many of them close at hand to those triad shapes. So let's see if we can get a little bit of an example. might get away with that, or your bandmates might prefer level 2. But if you get the chance to do a guitar solo or an instrumental, that can be a really nice alternative to the more typical kind of scale workout that you might get from other guitarists. So there we go, fun with triads. Really hope there was some stuff there that you found interesting and worth exploring. If so, any likes and subscribes, always very much appreciated. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you with something else very soon. Cheers.